Hello, Marky Dragon, also known as Marcus Eikenberry in real life, and this is an official roundtable for Neosland. And welcome, all of you here on the Hangout. And those of you who are watching live, there's a link posted every few minutes if you want to join us. And we welcome the input from everybody. Saint, tell me, what is our topic?
It is unwanted actions.
Okay, so let me explain what that is. That is like having ink around. Yeah.
Hey. Or goon swarm.
Or goon swarm. There you go. The goons.
And now you're comparing me to them.
No, he's comparing you to them. I'm just saying there's an alternative to you.
Oh, goodness.
That almost sounds that I'm worse.
Okay, so here's what I'm talking about. So this is the issue. In games where you have other real-life human beings that you're playing with that are not your friends, that you come into contact with you in different ways, they cause you grief or frustration in the game. And this is common to all MMOs, and it's common to first-person shooters, and it's common to when you're playing like Monopoly with your brothers and sisters when they get bored. So,
No wonder you're so big against cheating.
oh man, I hated that. Yeah, I was the big brother, actually. They hated me. So, so we've got several different examples of this here. We've got somebody who's spamming in chat. We've got somebody who keeps killing you over and over again and won't give you a break. We've got somebody that's verbally harassing you and calling you all kinds of names or whatever, or doing whatever else that really upsets you. They're pushing your buttons. And then we've got other things like we've got gold farmers. We've got bots. We've got other people using, let's say, applications that are not authorized for the game, and this is an issue. So this roundtable discussion is really kind of a brainstorming and some ideas of how we can creatively deal with these people, and I have a little bit of a twist here. I think that it's not about controlling them. I think that it is about how to incorporate them into the game so that they are a natural part of the game, so that they have very minimal effect on you and me playing. And and I know that that's a really tough challenge.
No, it's not.
It's not?
No.
Give me the answer then.
We have discussed
Ban
this.
everyone.
No. Nope, that would make my
Control,
dungeon
Alt,
very
delete.
boring, and I will never, ever get loot, and that's bad. I need loot. People need to come and die in my dungeon. Anyways, we discussed this before a couple of times, and I've mentioned it a few more times, of providing a limited number of NPCs to do really, really boring stuff. You pay them to do this really dull work. And as long as we have a random encounter set up, random orc hordes and monsters and stuff that wander through unpopulated areas, there is always the possibility that that NPC will die unless you provide him protection of some sort. Now, if you're a botter and you're setting up a whole account when you can just pay for a little bit, a percentage of your booty to an NPC, like for instance, you pay a woodsman or a forester to go out, and a lumberjack basically to go out and cut down trees for you. There's a chance he might die, but he gets a percentage of whatever he cuts down. That's his payment. Now, if you're going to be setting up an account and paying $10 a month or paying with in-game cash, we make it cheaper to just buy NPCs at first, and of course, because there's a limited number, the prices go up and you'll find a market value for the NPC. when you're dealing with botters, the random encounter generation system should take care of the possibility of botters getting gacked. If their bot keeps getting gacked by a random encounter, it's not going to be profitable for them to bot. We're not saying you can't bot. We're saying that the system, the world is set up in such a way that botting will not necessarily get you what you think it will.
We nerf it.
Yeah. We nerf it to the point where it's just easier to hire an NPC or transfer some NPCs from one town to another. And
Or easier
if
to do it yourself.
easier to do it yourself, you have well, here's the thing. Then they start botting with their main character. Now, if the main character gets gacked by a random encounter, that happens. But the idea is to nerf botting to the point where it's pointless to bot.
Mm-hmm.
I like that idea of nerfing the botters.
There is some games, kind of what you're talking about here, Evil. There was a game that really got a lot of press and news about it, just in its small sphere. But basically, the game was free to play, and there was no monthly subscription or anything. And what they did was they took all of the boring actions in the game, and you could buy bots. And so it allowed you to pay for all of these boring things to be done for you in an automated fashion while it was a free-to-play game. And so effectively you were buying a bot. And however much money you wanted to throw at it was how much it would generate. Sounds a little bit similar.
Never heard of any such game. It's because I've watched this whole war on bots with Eve.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one of those deals where they've gone to such an extent to cut out the botting that it's no longer... I mean, it's not really possible to bot in Eve without risking a ban. And I think you want as many people in the game either as NPCs or paying for an account one way or another, because it will change the cost curve on the paid subscription one way or another. I mean, how it settles out, I don't know, but they dedicated so many resources to it. I don't think it's worth the developers' time to take that tact with it.
In World of Tanks, they did something unique that's kind of like what I'm talking about. They made it so that any bots there were really just cannon fodder. And so they were another target to shoot at.
How did they do that?
I'm not sure, but interviews I did with Victor Kistley, he kept talking about this is how they did that they just made it so that they weren't so much of a nuisance in the game, and that they were good cannon fodder, and they served a purpose, which was to be killed.
You are somebody else's bonus.
Yeah, and that opportunity is open and equal to everybody on the opposing team.
Yeah.
And now, does that take away from your own team? Hell yeah. But they looked at it a little bit different, and I can tell you that I've heard of people saying there's bots in World of Tanks, but I don't know that I've ever encountered one.
Or if you did, you didn't notice.
Mm-hmm. Which is exactly what I would hope for our game here, is that if there is a bot, you don't even notice. It has no impact on our gameplay and no impact on our economy, because it's just not worth it.
Well, it'll have some impact, but the idea is that the mechanics of the game counterbalance the advantage. And it's done so completely invisibly. We're not going to have a war on bots. We're going to set it up so that bots aren't profitable enough to justify their existence. If you're having to pay for an account, in Eve, it's really easy to pay for your account very quickly with a bot. We make it so it's much harder to do that in this game, and just nerf them to the point where it's just easier to use the in-game resources to get their manufacturing base. Because we want people building stuff. We want people gathering resources one way or another. Because that's how the world's going to get built up.
Well, it is, but I want it to be real people doing it, and I don't want it to be Chinese workers that are paid $1 a day.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't know what to do about the Chinese problem.
Well, it's not just Chinese. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah.
That's where it's very common coming from. There are other countries that that also provide services like that. Philippines being another one of them. And the Philippines, they speak great English too.
Yeah.
So.
Chatroom has brought up a point, an interesting thing. What about multi-boxing?
I don't know. You know, it depends on you know, the definition with most games for multi-boxing or for being a wanted action as opposed to a non-wanted action is the interaction. And that if I say hello, or a GM or another player, whatever, says hello to somebody, that they stop and interact with them. And sure, you can ignore people or whatnot, but the theory being is that if you're multi-boxing, you still stop and have that interaction. You may just stop 3 characters at once to have that interaction. World of Warcraft allows it. EVE Online allows it. I'm sure there's others. And in fact, I know the guy who created multi-boxing, and if we wanted to go down that road, we could certainly have him on the show and talk about that.
Somebody created multi-boxing?
Yeah. So, same guy who...
Lex.
Same guy who created... what was that big database for WoW? He created Wowhead. He created another big database for WoW and everything, and he also created this stuff. So sold it all off to ZAM or something like that, or IGE and then ZAM. So,
Was he low on friends or something?
yeah, he manufactured his own, replicated them. So anyway, that's certainly something that could be looked at. I want to make sure that we're not taking any actions, though, that a person says, oh my God, they have multi-boxing, I don't even want to play it. I don't want that in the game if that's going to be people's common reaction. I'm not sure how to test that. But I was thinking about that with, you know, us talking about, you know, Evil talking about different ways to deal with bots. Just let them do their thing. Just make it so it can't do anything. But at the same time, it would disgust me to have a game that wouldn't do anything against bots. To just let them run free form, you know.
Well, that's the whole point of the random encounter generation system. You know, if botting becomes a serious problem and they don't have any security, they're just going out and getting killed and regenerating and going right back to where they died, picking up their loot and going about, you know, their business after the monsters have left, then you make it so that more monsters generate in that area. You know, there's more activity in the area, so it attracts more monsters.
Isn't the monster supposed to take his gear?
Monsters might take the gear unless it's crappy gear. Well, the monster might still take your gear, but, you know, that's orcs for you.
Can the monster sell the gear to buy something that benefits him?
Possibly.
That's a whole different subject.
Yeah, but the point being that there is a mechanic in place because a lot of bots are about resource gathering. Okay, so they're going to go where the resources are. If there's an area that's heavily wooded or a mountainside that has exposed minerals or something like that, you're going to get a lot of activity. And activity can just be one of the reasons why more monsters spawn in an area. The whole point is to have it invisible. If somebody's botting and their tune dies all of a sudden and they come back and they don't know what killed them, they just find their corpse, and then they die instantaneously again, eventually that's going to stop the botting. unless they take and spend time to go out and figure out what's killing them and kill it. But
Well,
even
there
then,
is- There is a system from a game that I've played is it kind of deters against the botting itself, and basically what it is, I think you guys might have already been talking about it, but basically an action will happen, a pop-up or something will actually stop you from moving your character, and a random question will come up. It's usually a mathematic question, something like 1 + 1 or 5 + 5 or whatever else it may, and you have to type in the code, but it's not even typed. You actually have to physically use your mouse to type in your answer. And that has stopped a lot.
It's like
a
a
lot of
CAPTCHA
botters.
challenge.
Kinda,
Um,
yeah, very similar to that, and it'll even do that if a potential, if you happen to get so much money within a short amount of time. Like if you end up getting like 5,000 gold from picking up stuff in a very short amount of time, it'll automatically pop that up. That might be a system that we might be able to implement, because it has actually cut back on botting for Demons Online is the one I'm talking about, and they had a horrible time with botting. I mean, about 60% of their game was botting. They introduced this into their system, and they've actually cut it down now to around 18% of their community now is done by botting. So that's a huge decrease.
well, maybe there can be some sort of mechanic in the background that if you're doing actions in such a manner that, for instance, I know that Eve has a data collection side for how they detect bots, and there's certain actions that a bot does in a certain manner that triggers this
Like
investigation.
repetitiveness.
Well, there's
Repetitiveness.
metrics and statistics.
Yeah,
Statistically, bots tend to repeat the same things over and over again, even the very sophisticated ones.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
the point being is, instead of bothering everybody with this, just take and look at. I'm sure those metrics can be attained quietly in the background by the developers, and have it so that this system pops up and starts asking questions only for those players that it's suspected that they're botting. And
Yeah,
that
what
way,
It's very easy by figuring out the packet flow. If the packet flow is manipulated, you will figure it out.
well,
directly.
I don't know the specifics of how it's done. I just know that it's done in the generalities. As somebody who's just trying to solve the problem of botting, and without annoying the rest of the players, because if I'm playing a game and this window pops up 5 times in an hour, I'm going to be pretty fucking pissed.
Yeah, I'm going to be upset too.
Okay,
It breaks the immersion, the experience.
Yes, it totally does. I agree it's a good way to stop it. I'm not objecting to it. I'm just saying that if we're going to implement something like this, which just the fact that we're talking about implementing something like this will put off the botters to begin with, or they'll have to come up with some expensive workaround for it. You know, the idea is we know what to look for with a bot, and we don't want it to be we want to nerf them as much as possible. And for those that are really hardcore about botting and want to break the system no matter what, throw this in as a tack on as a secondary line of defense, and then have the developers come up with a third line of defense that we wouldn't think about. And that way you have you're not going to make as much as you think you're going to make, because this is all about real life money. Okay.
Now, Brian, you have experience with battling bots, is that correct?
Yes, in our company we did a lot of things against bots. For example, packet sniffing. So the incoming packages from the client were checked, and if the signature was manipulated, you know that there was some program running in the background who was doing all the farming jobs, etc. Because you have the regular packet flow, and you can almost compare it with the bot packet flow, and you see that the packets are totally different from each other.
That would be one way of. That's a technological way of dealing with
Yes.
it.
And that could be a third third line of defense in the background.
Mm-hmm. If we can, implement multiple things. One, a defense that's technology based. Another defense that is really to where they just don't have any impact on it. Then maybe we'll have it licked. I can't say that we're going to lick everything 100% because it's not realistic to think that. But maybe we can greatly reduce the impact.
If you make
Well, what
it so
else?
that
Go ahead.
if you make it so that it's not profitable to do, you may limit the botters. The real thing that drives it is real-time money
Mm-hmm.
vendors. And if we can make it so that this game is not profitable for them to exist, they'll go someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
what you demons actually did. They had it that if you ended up failing too many times with that question that would pop up, they would actually throw you in the city jail, and you'd be locked in the city jail until either a GM would come and look at your history. They actually did have packet sniffing because I did know about that. So that what they would do is they would actually look at everything to see, okay, this guy was legitimate. Maybe he just typed the question wrong or whatever, and they would release him. Sometimes it could be 24 hours. Sometimes it was done right away. But if they found that they were doing any of that, then in order to get out of jail, they would have to spend real money, and they'd have to do that with U-Demon points. So they'd have to spend $20 or $30. Well, if they're doing this farming or whatever else it may be, I mean, they
That
could have
cuts
made
off
20 or
the
30
profit.
bucks, and then yeah, exactly, they made no profit. So they're like, well, I'm not going to do this anymore. And that's how they had eliminated from, like I said, a ridiculously high percentage of the game was botting, and now it's down to 18%.
Which is
So they
still
did
quite
eliminate
high.
a lot. 18% is still a fair, decent amount, but compared to what it was
60.
at, compared to
You
60,
cut it
is
to
huge.
25. You cut it to 25%.
Yeah, that's a huge decrease. And it could be even less than that now. I don't know. I haven't been with them for a while, but I mean, I know that it was at least 18 when I left.
Wow.
I can tell you that bots and stuff. I interviewed Jeffrey Zatkins, who is one of the original EverQuest developers, and he talked about bots and gold farmers and stuff within EverQuest. That it was the highest cost center for customer support in their system, and it was the most costly thing, and so I think it's incredibly important. And that's on that was like bots in game, and that was also people hacking accounts and then clearing out the accounts, and so this is so hugely important.
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm arguing for a passive system to nerf the bots as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the system is set up that bots are not profitable, you won't have bots, or
Well,
you won't
this
have
is
that
true.
type of bot. There's still things like Aimbots and stuff like that that really annoy the crap out of me.
Mm-hmm.
My experience with Infestation was not good. And I think that if there's a way to eliminate or nerf Aimbots as well, I think we should take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got a system where you can't actually carry huge amounts anyway. So these bots will be literally working for 10-20 minutes, and then they'll have to go somewhere and deposit everything they've got. So that will slow down the process that they sort of are using anyway. And we're not it's not as if they can go out and farm gold, because gold doesn't exist in the world, I guess, as sort of drops from mobs or anything else.
Gold is heavy.
Farming trees, you carry 2 bits of tree trunks and that's it. You can't carry anymore unless you've got a cart with you and stuff like that, which will then involve the bot having to cart everything back all the time.
That might be a way of doing it as well. Yeah, just eliminate have a weight limit to it, kind of like what you have in Skyrim. Right?
Oh,
Well,
They can
then the
have that,
bots
yeah.
just get really good at running. That's all they do. running their
Well-
shit back and forth and dropping it off.
But
If
it's
they're running,
doubling
they're
or
not
tripling
fine.
their time, though. That's the thing. I mean, it's doubling or tripling their time of
It's
them
not.
getting the resource.
It does not affect the economy, and here's why: because it doubles or triples the time for the real players as well.
Yeah.
And so it just nullifies
yeah, that's true.
that
yeah,
whole thing.
That's true. No, I agree
And,
with you.
Yeah,
and we don't
but-
want anything that makes it not fun to play.
Well, part of this
Hmm.
is growing beyond what is normal. And once you start mining, you're like, man, mining really sucks. How can I do this faster? Oh, I'm going to research a spell that allows me to split the earth open so that I can just go along this ravine and mine the valuable stuff. I mean, stuff like that. Players are creative when they have an open system. If you leave the system open enough, players will figure out ways to advance their beyond what is normal. Okay, and of course, specialty items are going to be expensive because they're player created. So bots aren't going to a bot owner is not going to spend a lot of money to get these specialty items. They might, upgrade to what's reasonable, but they're not going to go out and buy magic spells to do this stuff. However, the players who want to save their time and get onto other items will. So if you make it so that it's a player action to do this, then you're going to see resources going to those who are willing to invest in their ingenuity.
Bots will buy that if it makes them more money. They'll buy the spells 200 at a time and just keep using them.
Well, it
That
definitely
one's
looks like advanced mining or something. So make it 2 months into the game.
Yeah. But there's got to be a way that we can do it where there's the players are no longer equal to a simple bot.
Yeah, that's something that I'm seeing in some other games is that even with like the metrics method or statistics, that that the really good players, the people who are just the top 1%, they're always getting looked at, and it's really a pain in the butt. It's a good thing I'm not really good in any of these games, so that nobody ever investigates me.
Oh,
I died,
you will
I
be
died
now.
too much. Yeah, but God, I saw a video the other day of somebody who was live streaming that got challenged by a dev, and and it just looked like he was a really good player, and he may have been a cheater or not. I don't know, but he was live streaming and he got challenged by a dev, and the dev banned him. And
Which game?
So I'm gonna, just no, I don't want to say.
Okay.
So, but anyway,
I think the
Yeah.
bigger problem is aimbots than resource bots. I mean, something that gives you an advantage in combat could be a huge change to the combat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that there's a couple of people that I'd really like to hear from on this, and one of them is Jeffrey Atkins. He's a statistician now, and they actually monitor metrics in games to show you anomalies, and I would be really interested to hear a little bit about that. And then also, I have another friend who's the one who created WoW Glider, which was probably the most successful bot in history. Never mind that he got sued and lost for $6 million from Blizzard, but he was his team was very successful at that, and maybe there's some information that he could share that would give us some insight on on what's important to the botters and stuff like that. So, because I don't feel like we're actually making any progress here in our discussions. We're talking about some stuff, but I don't feel like we have any solutions saying, oh, that's the answer. All we need to do is that. We have a lot of good ideas, but none of them are the end all idea.
Well, how long will it take you to get them on? Either
Um,
of them.
yeah, well, I'll reach out to him today and see. So,
Because
um,
that's a conversation I would love to be a part of,
okay.
if only to learn.
Maybe I should both have them on the show at once, and it can be a battle.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Epic rap battles of history.
But Marcus, one of the easiest solutions we did in the first days, because it took a bit time to develop such things, was checking the IPs, and if all the IPs are coming from almost the same location or something like that, they're suspicious, and then you're starting to ban the people. And
Yeah.
if you don't get any reply in the next 24 hours, you can be sure it was a bot.
I think that yeah, I realize your experience with that and everything, and I also really want to make sure that I am also an advocate for the player and for the player who's wrongly accused. And because there's nothing that irks me worse than a player that is wrongfully banned. And this is a business agreement and everything, and so how much time do you put into figuring out whether or not somebody's being truthful when they look so guilty? And the guilty parties, will tell you that they're not guilty, just like when you put a real criminal in jail, some of them admit to their guilt and they move on, while others never admit it, even though they really did it. And so it's a very hard thing to figure out, and it becomes a judgment call. It becomes like I'm talking to this person. Let's say I was a GM in the game, and I'm talking to this other person, and I'm saying, it looks really suspicious. What are you doing? And he says, well, I'm just trying out this new maneuver, and I'm trying to perfect it. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's why it's doing over and over and over again. And it got flagged because of doing the same repetitious action over and over again. And, compared to somebody who doesn't say anything at all, somebody who doesn't say anything is a lot more suspicious. But here's the deal. We are going to have people playing our game that do not speak English like we all are doing here right now. And the non-English speakers that are playing the game, they may be able to, if we design this, if this game is done well and the interface is done well, they don't need to learn a lick of English to be able to figure anything out. They can play it without knowing any English. And if I challenge them and I say, what is FIVE plus, the number 1 and then THOUSAND, 1,000, what does that equal? And they don't know English, they've immediately failed, but they're a legitimate player. And I just want to be very, very sensitive to that. I don't want to wrongfully ban anyone. I don't want that to happen. But it will, statistically, it will happen. But
Just as usual, this will happen in every game. There's no game that is not banning players by accident. Also,
But-
we did it in the past, and in the case, if the customer was coming back to us, we were checking it directly manually, and then, reimburse him some currency and open the account again.
Yeah, and there's a matter of how much time does the company have to spend investigating these to figure out whether they're a legit player or not. And because every one of them that you ban that is not a legit player, that you get rid of, and if you only have to spend 5 minutes on that, you've done good work. And if you have to spend an hour on each one of them, and to prove that they're bad or whatnot, then somebody has only banned 8 bots in one work shift.
Yeah.
And if it takes an hour to figure out that they're innocent, that's how far you have to go each time to figure it out. And who pays for that? All of us, the players, do, because we have to pay for it with our subscriptions.
It sounds like, from what I've heard so far about the metrics and being able to analyze the player code and the packet sniffing and all that, it sounds like it would be relatively easy to filter these.
Well, it's not so easy, and I can tell you that because in another game that I play, I was banned. In fact, my whole family was banned because I hit a particular metric or stat. The circumstances were that I got banned because I did something that was not an action that was improper in the game or anything. And I didn't do it on purpose even. And it took 3 days to figure it out, what happened. And thank God I know the developers there, and they were able to look things up and work with me because they believed me when I said I didn't do anything. But the problem is, are we
That metric was messed up, though.
Well, yeah, but any metric can be messed up. I'm just saying that we can't 100% rely upon metrics. You have to rely on humans, but then humans have a cost that are higher than the metrics analysis.
Yeah.
That's the point, yeah. And even so, as you mentioned already, if you have packet loss on your normal route, so the packets are also somehow a bit monopolized. So the sniffing tool will also say, hey, this packet is not complete, there is some part missing. But you have internet connections in real life, and yeah, you get banned for that.
Yeah. That actually is Punkbuster is famous for doing that.
Oh yeah.
And while Punkbuster has been a godsend to some games, it has this side effect that it kicks you from the game. And if certain things happen in the data flow with that, it will actually ban you from the game. And so, and what are you supposed to do? I mean, shit, I'm just having internet problems between me and the server.
Yep.
So
the biggest problem would be proof that you had internet problems during that
how
time.
do I prove that?
Yeah, that's the point. How do you prove it?
Yeah, I'm not going to track everything every time I do it. And then even how do they accept it as proof? Because I've even seen people banned and then they're like, well, I was live streaming at the time. Here's my screen. And they're like, nah, you were doing something else we couldn't see.
Yeah.
So I just want to be very anal about that. And maybe I'm going to have to lower my standards because it's all a dollars and cents thing. But
Actually,
I don't want to start at that point.
I would not lower your standards on that. I would get those two experts on, whether it be singularly or on the show together, preferably together, because I think that would be an interesting thing to watch.
It would be.
And
and we could throw in a Blizzard lawyer too.
Yeah. Well,
No,
give
I'm
them
just kidding.
give them the option of coming on together. If both of them agree to it, then do it. If one of them doesn't want to come on with the other, that's fine. But I think for the purposes of this game, I think we need to table this until we have heard from them.
Okay, so let's move on because I agree we've not heard everything we need to hear yet. We do not have enough information to make a good decision, and so let's move over to something else that's a little bit simpler, but is still part of this subject, and that's griefing. How should we deal with players that are griefing?
I send my baby dragon to bite them in their. Well, we won't say that.
Well, which form of griefing you're talking about? Is it me killing you or taking your resources close to your house or something like that?
Well, neither one of those are illegal in the game as we've designed it so far. I can kill
Yeah.
you anywhere, and I can take anything anytime. But, if I am, standing out on the front porch of my house yelling obscenities all the time, and you're my neighbor and you keep seeing that, that would be griefing. If I keep giving you unwanted contact of saying, keep sending you messages, bomb your in-game mailbox or, whatever. These are all griefing type things.
Well, you can set up a mail filter with a block to start for the basics. I mean, there are a lot of basic things that you can put in, saying something like, for instance, somebody's yelling something in local chat over voice. Set it up so that you can mute them, whether it be temporary or permanent.
Whether it's chat or talk,
both separate. And that way, if somebody's really griefing you, then they have to come up and kill you and risk the in-game authorities attacking them or jailing them. I'm really torn on this because having been griefed in the past in EVE, I can honestly say the experience sucked, but seeing a language filter or a filter on the actions of somebody just as a matter of fact, as opposed to having that freedom to be able to say, screw you, I'm banning you. You know, I'm banning you from talking to me. I, I'm really torn between.
That is one of the key things. A key principle of somebody who's being a bully or somebody who is harassing you or whatnot is to stop giving them any reaction.
Yeah.
And because that's why they're doing it. They're doing it for the reaction. And so if you block them to where you can't see what they're saying anymore or hear it or whatever, then they stop getting any reaction whatsoever. The problem with that is that a lot of people don't like doing that because they're pissed off at them and want to see what they're going to say next so they can be even more pissed off at them. But it's kind of like why some people watch my show. They disagree with me. You know, it's so funny. YouTube came out with this thing where I can see my top viewers. And one of my biggest one of the biggest complainers about me is in the top 5 of my viewers. Isn't that funny?
Oh my God.
He likes to torment himself.
Like it. Stop watching Jumpin' Jesus on a pogo stick.
Yeah. But that's how Howard Stern made all of his millions.
Yeah.
Shock jock people. It's just human nature. But certainly, blocking is very easy to do.
I think it's something that we should leave up to the players and put a game mechanic in where the players can basically say, you're being an asshole, I don't deal with assholes because I don't like being shit on. And, just give them the ability to ignore them completely. And if they take further actions in the game, that are legal in the game, then that's when things have to be escalated in some fashion. I would prefer to leave it in the player's hands personally. But, if somebody's there will be people who will go in and disrupt the game simply for the sake of disrupting.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there'll be other things like in-game weddings and stuff like that, and a horde of people come in and kill everybody.
Yes.
And stuff like that, and maybe that's just part of the whole thing. I mean, we encountered that in Ultima Online, and it was funny as hell. It pissed everybody off, but it was funny as hell. And I was one of the people being killed, but at the same time, then you call all your buddies and say, hey, we're doing this event, can you protect us? And there's a battle going on out there while there's a marriage happening in the game.
Marriage forged by the blood.
Is that any different to real life?
I know.
The Red Wedding. Everybody and their mother died.
Oh my goodness, that was such an awesome episode.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
And the mother comes back for revenge.
Yes, and after watching Breaking Bad the other night, I decided that I no longer want to look like Heisenberg. So, okay. Any other thoughts on this? I mean, it feels like we did not flesh a lot out in this episode, but we identified some things that need to be looked at closer.
And certain people we need to hear from.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe there's an expert out there on griefing and player interaction too. So
I'm sure somebody will contact you with that info.
Yeah. So you want to come on the show? Contact me. Okay. So we're going to do a drawing next. And then after that, we're going to do a special episode. For those of you watching live, hang around. I'll describe to you what we're going to do in a couple of minutes. And those of you here in the Hangout, hang on here too. And we will be right back.